ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. It's your favorite paranormal investigator, Tim Sudano, here with Paranormal Insight. Today, however does you want to look at it, we have Michelle Desrochers from Outer Realm. You know her, you love her. Let's bring her on in. Hey, Michelle, how you doing?
Good. It's quite the intro. Thank you very much.
Sure. Happy to have you on.
Yeah. Outstanding. But thank you for having me back. We had so much fun the last time.
Absolutely. Richard, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you having you on.
Hi, Richard. Hi.
Yeah. If anyone else is out there listening and wants to join the chat, we are live. You can go to the UPRN network and join any one of our streams.
Yeah.
And hop on in. Is there a better place for them to go than anywhere else, Michelle? Or they just hop on the most convenient screen?
I always recommend the YouTube channels, of course, which is UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials for this show. But that's the network one, of course, your YouTube channel. We're on Roku TV today. We are on Rumble today. We are on my X today. And of course, our YouTube as well. So many of our great people can migrate over to listen to you as well, Richard being one of them. And of course, we are on International Community for Alien Research. So ICAR Facebook, International Community for Alien Research, which is part of our network. Why, you ask? Because we're talking about
fantastic.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, so today's topic is the crossover that happens a lot, and reports I have fielded personally as a paranormal investigator. I'm sure you have as well. And there's also just stories upon stories about all this interesting crossovers between ghosts and aliens. And are aliens ghosts? Are ghosts aliens? That's been a really common kind of conundrum, I guess is the word. And you are an experiencer, excuse me, and you have probably about as much experience, if not more, than I do as a paranormal investigator as well. So from the more scientific aspect to the more experiential aspect, is there a crossover happening? Are aliens living in the ghost realm or the ghost dimension, as it were?
Well, I can tell you this is something that's been a belief for a long time. I mean, you get into even John Keel. Most people know him from the Mothman prophecies. He believed in parallel worlds or universes. And he believed that certain creatures or cryptid beings were coming in from this parallel world and assumed that ET may have been as well. Whenever you think of things like orbs, I mean, orbs get to be a bit taboo in this field because there's so many logical reasons for them, as well as high strangeness revolved around them. But they've been seen around cryptids, they've been seen around UFOs, they've been seen in the paranormal. So we know right there, just that with orbs, that there's a crossover. I can tell you, out of the 2 decades that I've been doing paranormal research, probably half of them were experiencers as well. And some of the things that they were coming out with and things they were talking about sounded, like it could have gone either way. I always laugh because, people will see me do television. It's like run around screaming demon all the time. Like, I'm so far removed from that, but it's just it's what sells. I don't have control over what ends up on the cutting room floor.
That's an interesting point. We should definitely address that portion of things in a little bit later on in the show.
Yeah,
but I'm sorry. Please continue.
It's a thing, right? So people just make assumptions based on what they're seeing. But if you explore things, and why I mentioned the demon thing, because typically speaking, from a paranormal standpoint, when people are experiencing malevolent energies or demonic, depending on what your faith is, they'll encounter things like foul smells, bright white lights, crackling sounds, sleep paralysis is a big one. We can talk about that. That's a show in itself, but we could definitely merge that in, into all this as well as we move along. And people have reported, enhanced psychic abilities when they are living with spirits within their space, even with malevolent energies. But here's what people don't know is that foul smells have also been reported, like the sulfur smell, by
Mhm.
abductees. Same with bright white lights. I have experienced all of this. Crackling sounds, experienced it. The sleep paralysis, experienced it. I've had mediumship abilities, so I don't know if they were enhanced or not. I could use a bit more enhancing some days, so feel free to work on that. Like some days I feel like I'm walking around in a cloud, but it's like, come on.
Yeah.
So, so you're getting into, there's a ton of similarities just right there that I've given you literally in the first 5 minutes of this conversation, and there's a pile more to go.
There is a pile more to go. Absolutely. The reports I have gotten are actual entities being seen that resemble the Greys, for example. Hey, Michelle,
Mhm.
welcome aboard. Um, other Michelle. I'll put her
Yeah,
thing up.
yeah.
And someone said hello, Richard, but that's okay. My name's Tim. Oh, you're talking to Richard. Never mind.
The other Richard, yeah.
The other Richard. Um, but no, I mean, I've gotten reports that people have seen entities that look like classic Greys, the little guys now, walking through their hallways and going through walls.
Mhm.
But that's also an abduction phenomenon as well. So it's fascinating to hear these accounts. It's like, I think I'm seeing a dead alien. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
It gets
Because,
weird. It
yeah,
does.
man.
It gets really weird because I think there's so much that we don't know. And what I have found interesting is that we actually just talked about this on the Outer Realm last night briefly, but how easy it is for people to, it's easy for them to say, yes, I believe that there's a ghost here, or I believe that there's even something more malevolent here. It's easy to believe in demons and things like that. I mean, a lot of that I think is conditioning. When I work with people, I've always tried to work with their belief system as well, because I have to in turn use their belief system to help them be the ones to take control of their space. But it's easier for them to believe that than to believe in aliens. I've had people say, I don't believe in aliens, but I believe in demons. You believe in a demon, but the fact that life out there is not an option. So that's been interesting to me. And,
Yeah.
and just like it's hard for them to believe in the manifestation of energy, psychokinesis or telekinesis. They have a real hard time thinking that this could be them projecting out all of this energy. I said, and you can tell with the sensitive ones because I've had to send them links on psychokinesis, and I'm like, if you see yourself in this, feel free to reach out because I don't really know how else to blend it in there, right? Because it's not a thing.
Right.
They don't have understandings that we are these really powerful beings. But that's poltergeist energy, right? It's a projection of energy.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I talk about my experience in the condo, as as I call it,
Yeah, right.
uh, where we have a classic poltergeist experience, and the second they were Christian or Catholic, I'm not sure which,
Mhm.
but Christian in general, and they had crosses up everywhere, but they also had these 5-point stars running down the hallway, and there was a conflict of energies.
Mhm.
And I said,
Yeah.
well, take down the stars, just see what happens. And it cleared everything up. It was bizarre.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I mean, are there was that a placebo effect and they just, felt that they took down something quasi pagan? Because they were just paper lanterns that were shaped like 5-point stars,
Right.
realistically. I
I
mean,
I
did they do that?
I'm a really big believer in mindset and intention and manifestation. And first off, when you're dealing with somebody's belief system, that's what empowers them. So that's what you have to lean on. When I'm dealing with certain groups of people, it's a demon, it's an angel. When I'm dealing with people who may be indifferent with faith, who are no, we believe in ufology, we believe in this theory, then I'll deal with light beings, or perhaps you saw something that looked like a demon. I have to say, okay, was that a reptilian? Was that a draconian? Is that a different type of dimensional or interdimensional being? There's so many different types of ethereal beings out there. All you can do is take a stab at it because you haven't seen them all. But you have to go with that. So I also know that when people, again, we spoke about this a bit last night, but when I work with people to try to get them to cleanse their space, it's not so much about what they're using to cleanse or how they're cleansing. It has to do with the power and the intention of the act of cleansing, and the power behind the words that they're
Yeah.
using, whatever it is that empowers them or makes them feel that they can go through the process. It really has to be about what's up here. And when I've worked with people, it's always been about what's up here and trying to give them a crash course, in that sort of thing. And I
Yeah.
find that when people, whether we're dealing with extraterrestrials or whether we're dealing with these beings of faith, a lot of it is the feeling that you're not alone. Like, because when I come in, honestly, Tim, I've had people drop at my feet crying, and I'm just like, "Oh, God, now get up," like it's I feel for people. It's very awkward. But sometimes there's
Yeah.
something leading them to believe that they're under some kind of attack by something, and it's just my job to be supportive and to help them try to sort through it and figure it out. And um, it makes it really, really difficult to try to figure that out. But once they realize somebody believes me and somebody is here and has my back, all of a sudden they become confident enough and they feel braver to be able to confront whatever the case may be. Because I'll always be very clear about the fact, look, I'm here and I'm usually there 24/7 for people. I've had my phone go at all times of the night, and I'm just like, "Let me take the weight for a while. Just kick back and just, and that's what you have to do, because a lot of this stuff happens at night. So maybe we should need to ask ourselves, why does it happen at night? Why do feel, is it people feel more vulnerable at night, so they react differently?
Could be.
Uh, our subconscious is wide open. A lot of contact happens again at night. Is it because the world is more quiet? They can go undetected. What is it exactly?
I think it's a combination of things. Personally, I mean, my limited research has seen certain explanations crop up where, yes, it is nighttime, but because there's less solar radiation, that there's not a lot of magnetic
Mm.
hoopla happening.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we're
Yeah.
not as overwhelmed personally.
Mhm.
And then there's, yeah, we're at rest. We are more
Mhm.
isolated in our bedrooms and what have you.
Mhm.
So yeah, that we're just a little more. Our space is a little more personalized, and they're if
Mhm.
they out there, these entities, whatever they may be, are allowed to
Mhm.
move around a little more freely and with less interference, not only from the environment but from us.
Mhm. I agree, and I think we feel more vulnerable. I know with myself as an experience, I obviously had a more comfort with it as a child, but I still ended up with a very inconsequential part of my life, ironically. The only parts I really remember is, you know, always looking up to the stars, and my grandfather was the same, he had a telescope. My family talked about all kinds of things that they would see. I mean, this was before the age of, like, fricking million bloody satellites up there. I know I'm exaggerating, but but when you
You're
saw
not far
something in the
off.
sky moving at Mach whatever, it was something that was not a satellite. So,
Yeah,
growing up
without
in the
making
north,
sound. Yeah,
oh yeah, silent, moving across the sky at high speeds. I watched one land one night, the next day there were military helicopters all over the valley. I grew up surrounded by lakes and mountains. Very, very fortunate. It was a great place to grow up and have these incredible experiences. But it wasn't until, like, later in life because I went through a barrage of paranormal experiences, and a lot of the things that I've talked about, throughout my journey, people getting to know what my story was, as I was always working on everybody else's stories, which I featured on my Paranormal Nightmare. It's the only one, I spoke about on there, just tidbits otherwise. But and even then, they did a great job with it. But of course, it's got to be more, But what my belief was at the time is that there was a very dark energy there, and I mean, people would come over, visit, they would sense this, and there was definitely something there. But as I move along and I start seeing some of the similarities, I'm like, how much of it stemmed from my experiencers days as a child and having, certain beings around me, because I get growled at and things like that. And then had a guest on my show once, and he said, "No, Grace can growl. Grace can growl." So is that what I was hearing? I don't know, but
That's intriguing.
I think we evolve as we move forward as researchers. We evolve, and I'm not afraid to say at this stage, did I have it all wrong? Was I dealing with ET all this time? Like all the signs were there. Everything was there. There was such a crossover happening. It could have been either all the way. But as an adult, my comfort level with being an experiencer changed quite a bit. I would wake up with hands on my head, and I could feel like this vibration sort of thing. Like I called it a transfer of energy or knowledge. Maybe they're taking from me, maybe they're giving me a download. I don't know. But I got a little bit hostile about it at first, and got a little bit aggressive. And that's, took a friend of mine who's also an experiencer saying, but you notice the common factor here was the respect that they left you alone when you asked to be left alone. Then I started to relax a little bit. And when people talk about CE5s, I was able to just do it telepathically. And then everything came in, the white lights, that's when I saw the gray standing there. And something interesting I found out since the last time I was on with you. So I had a guest on, and I have, a recording where I hear a lot of this clicking and clacking. I've had chirping. I've had all kinds of communication. But it's like clicking, clacking. I'm going, oh, it's got to be a gray, because I always had believed that Grace did this. And according to other people I've spoken to, yeah, Grace. And a guest was on, no, because that's actually a mantis.
Oh, interesting. Insectoid. Okay.
I wasn't sure how I felt about that, because I didn't know much about them. Because when I see a mantis, the thing puts its little hands up at me, all aggressive. I'm just like, so I'm thinking, so we're talking, yeah, supersized one. That can't be good. So of course, having, like one of my dear friends, Preston Dennett, he's going, Michelle, they're very friendly. I'm just going, all right, friendly bugs. Okay. So it took me a while, obviously more respectful, but it took me a while to realize that, yes, that crackle pop sound's got loads of that too. So the journey has changed.
Okay.
Right.
That's incredible. You mentioned clicking, and I was reminded, I just saw a show, free plug, Expedition Bigfoot. And they had an experience that they caught on multiple mics across a valley, actually, of just across a valley up in the mountains. And apparently the primatologist related that, if these creatures are out there, she seems to be leaning toward that they are, that they're duplicating other primate things where they clack their teeth kind of loudly as an announcement. It's like, I'm here.
Well, okay. Well, let's take that a step further. If they think this is what Bigfoot is doing, so there are beliefs that Bigfoot comes in through portals. There have been whistleblowers. If you can put any merit into it, I mean, whistleblowers really take a chance, in my opinion, coming forward with any kind of information. But essentially, they believe that Bigfoot does use portals, that they are interdimensional. Orbs are often seen around them, or shadow beings, paranormal activity. So unless you've got one kind of coming into the zone of my comfort level, uh, with all of these sounds, it makes you wonder, like, are they mimicking it? Is this their sound, or where are they getting it from? What are they
Mm.
interacting with on a different scale?
Michelle asks an interesting question. Have you ever heard anything high pitched beep?
Oh, yes. I hear lots of things, which is crazy. I have heard really high-pitched beeps. I have heard high-pitched frequencies, screeching. I've heard music, like for
Like
weeks on end before my mom passed.
Beethoven kind of music, or
Oh, no, choirs, Viking stuff, that was lineage stuff, but yeah, choirs. And what was strange was when my mother passed a couple years ago, um, I hadn't been in this house very long. This house has not had any kind of paranormal activity. Our last house was, everybody knew it was haunted. Everybody would come and film there. It was ridiculously haunted, alien activity all the time. It was nonstop. And anyway, this house is quiet. So much so when we moved in here and I went, listen, listen. And everyone said, quiet, what? And I was, it's freaking quiet. This is like quiet. I have been yearning for quiet. But my mom got sick, went into the hospital, and all of a sudden it was music of all sorts that were almost left you to the brink of crazy emotional stuff. And when she passed away, because I would hear it during the day all the time. It was nonstop. I've never experienced that
oh,
in my
that
in my
surprises
life.
me. Okay,
Oh no, all the time.
yeah,
I was fully awake while this is going on. I'm driving, going, gotta change this tune. And all of a sudden, it was just something else. Beautiful.
change
I
the
was like,
station.
I know, because but it was for 2 or 3 weeks. It went on nonstop. And
Mm.
as my mother was passing, she had a really dear friend who was a medium, and the woman was just, you have to wait forever for this girl. And she said, the angels have been singing for you. My
Oh
mom's like, oh,
wow,
that's sweet. But can I tell you how many angelic choirs and Gregorian chants that I was hearing?
wow,
Nothing I've ever
wow.
experienced before. I know. Go figure. I just kind of went,
Yeah,
that's a thing.
that's intriguing. And you're not the first person I've heard say that. But to hear it during the day, usually it comes in at night for a lot of people when
It's
they're a
at
little
night.
more relaxed. But
No,
for
at
you,
night,
all
during the
day,
day.
huh?
Yeah, many parts of the
Wow.
day. In the end, like in the last couple of days of her life, it was constant, constant, constant. And at times there were, like I said, like Viking chanting, and that was part of our lineage. And I would listen to that and go, okay, that's different. And then Gregorian chanting. Sometimes it was flutes and just humming just beautiful melodies that I don't know. But I'll tell you something. When my mother passed, it all came to an end, all of it, and I haven't heard it since. It's been 2 years.
Wow.
I know.
That's amazing. That's what
I
little Ken
know.
just said too. Wow.
Wow, I know. It's like, you know, I beg for it now. I'm just like, oh my God, I want to hear it again, because it's like you
Right.
experience something new. So where did that come from? I mean, it's a whole array of different things that obviously pertained to her, because in the end, she was obviously reaching out. She had a healthy belief and connection to the angelic, and you know, had family members like super religious, so she was always there. So I guess her mind must have wandered off. So I don't know. Was she projecting this out? Was she, then lineage stuff, and it just got like, it was crazy, and it was constant. I went to bed hearing it. I would wake up and then it would start. I'd be driving going, all right. Towards the end, though, it was more constant than the first week, for example. So,
Interesting. Were you able to identify any pieces of these music that are either contemporary or ancient, like the Viking things? Was it a specific song that was sung?
No, I never got that because there
Okay.
were a couple of variations that would come out, and I don't follow a lot of it. And Gregorian chants, all I love it all, but it all sounds very similar,
It does. It does.
and angelic stuff is it was choirs, but on a pitch that was so unbelievable. It was like nothing I had ever heard. So I just put it off as choirs, and then when my mother's friend, she goes, "No, the angels have been singing for you. They're waiting." And I was just
Oh,
like, okay. So I started to connect some of those dots. But yeah, when she passed, it's like the switch just went off and that was the end of
wow.
it. Literally. Yeah, she died at like 5 p.m. or something, or 5:02 or something like that. And then from that moment on, there was nothing
So if you're
from that.
listening out there, sing for Michelle again. She wants to hear
Sing, sing. I know. It was quite, when they say music is an universal language, I truly believe that it is.
That's been proven scientifically as well as emotionally. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
We everything's frequency right now on the
it
internet.
is.
I mean, that's all they're talking about practically.
Well, I think people are
And there's
having
also harmonics, which make us feel. Say again.
yes. I think people are having awakenings. They're connecting. I could give you a lot of different reasons for why some of these frequencies are out there, but on an average, when we look into the research with Nikola Tesla and universal stuff, vibration frequency is part of who we are. We're energy. We're like batteries. You know what I mean? So it's not hard for us to
Right.
connect to these higher levels. In fact, when I work with people, I have often said, look, go in and look up a binaural beat that has roughly this frequency. The idea is connecting back to the planet too, which is like a 432 hertz,
Hmm.
right? As opposed to why they just ironically shifted to the 440. And there's a lot of theories with that too. They'll say, well, that's a devil's frequency. I'm like, oh, yeah. So, all right then. Note to self, don't tap into that one. But
Listen to the older
that
music. Listen to the older music.
exactly. But that became the musical note tone, and they got away from the 432, which is that connection to our planet, which is important. It's
Yeah,
like part of our grounding. It's very important for us
yeah, it
as
is. It really is. And it's not the
Mhm.
only planet that makes noise. NASA has recorded all of our planets, including Pluto, and they
Yes,
all have a sound to them,
they do.
which is fantastic. And
Funny
one of
that.
them growls. It's kind of spooky. It's
Of
like a
course
moon
it
of
does.
Saturn or something like that.
Well, of course it would be Saturn. You want to even get into Saturn worship and stuff? That's a whole other show right
Oh,
there.
that's a big. Hey, Sherry.
Hey,
Sherry said
Sherry.
hi. How's it
Uh-huh.
going?
Hi, Sherry. I know, right? So we could go off in so many different directions with
Yeah,
this.
we really could.
The rabbit hole
Let's.
has a lot of little street
Oh
detours.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, well, stick with frequencies for a second, and music in general. Certain, I mean, that part of music theory, which I took briefly in high school and college, that was going to be my goal. But I mean, you hit certain chords, and they're going to produce certain emotions,
Mhm.
which is
Yeah,
fascinating. I mean, the human mind reacts to these
mhm.
chords. It's like, oh, that's a pleasant chord. Oh, that's a dark chord. In fact, there was a song that was so detrimental to the psychology of the human mind that it was said to induce suicide if you played it too often. And it was
Crazy.
dirgy and kind of dark toned, and it was out in like the 30s or something like that. And then they pulled the record once they figured out what was going on. And if you could find an
Crazy.
example of it, you're lucky. I think it's probably on the internet somewhere, but
Oh, it's got to be somewhere. It's got to be
somewhere.
somewhere.
Listen to it at your own risk, though, because apparently it will induce some really dark emotions in you.
Surprised the elite
So,
aren't pumping it out on loudspeakers. Oops, did I say that?
oh,
Did. So, but on the topic of frequency, I just touched on it briefly again last night, but because there's so much to it, you just never have the time for it. But
yeah.
bells, church bells that were everywhere,
Mhm.
and they say, oh, those they were all removed during the war effort. Mind you, now they're finding their photos where caches of buried bells are being
Yes, I've
found.
been seeing that.
But bells were said to ward off evil spirits and demonic energy and dark energy. You ever notice that in church?
Hmm.
Right? When they're
Well, yeah,
doing
they do that
it.
in the Catholic tradition anyway. They ring the
Yeah.
bell.
But this is pretty much everywhere, and I kind of joked around a little bit because I have, I have a family member who's like wigged out about everything, right? She's, I grew up with you. I know what kind of crap hangs around with you. And anyway, so she every time something little happens, I think she was just traumatized as a child. But every time something
Hmm.
happens, now she's on edge. So I bought her a bell for Christmas. Hey, I just ring that sucker whenever something goes on, make you feel better. So, but it is frequency. I do frequency work because I love working with frequencies and different instruments that can heighten frequencies, clear your chakras, and just dark things can't really survive in a positive space. Starve them.
Yeah, I've heard and experienced that myself.
See?
There was a story that came up through one of my past guests, Doctor Alcorn.
Yeah. Yeah.
He and his wife are followers of Helena Danan,
Yes.
so they kind of follow her vibe
Mhm.
with the whole spectrum of aliens and stuff like that.
Yes.
And one of their clients was being either regressed or had a past life experience that they didn't quite understand, so they put them under. And as they're going through the past life experience, I guess it was a past life experience, as they're going through it,
Mhm.
they're seeing in this hellscape, for lack of a better term,
Mhm.
big winged draconian aliens. Just to kind of steer us back to our thing. So are they? It made me wonder. It's like, oh, are these constructs of aliens in occupying these different dimensions that have been taken over?
I,
Are they?
I
Go ahead.
I think reptilians get a bad rap. I you
I've
know,
heard that too.
yeah, I think they look big and scary. I mean, they were here long before us. You can go back to stories, way in a way back machine with people who have had bad interactions, with reptilians. Some believe that they were part of, the whole Anunnaki thing. Just go back and look at the reptilian undertones of a lot of that as well. So some people believe, oh, maybe they were instrumental in our missing link kind of thing, right? The hybridization of just jump starting us into a more of what we look like today. But dragons, the draconians are the winged ones.
No, the
And
winged ones with the big tails. Yeah.
I have a very strong connection to them. I have always had a strong connection to dragons. But again, that's also part of a bloodline thing as well. And that's a whole other rabbit hole that I won't go down. But there's a lot to that. So, but like anything else, how it was explained to me is that there are good ones, just like good people, and there are not so good ones. And
Yeah.
are these the ones who essentially, are infiltrating the elite and so on? There are tunnels all over this planet, and you start getting into inner earth things, and you start realizing that there are a lot of beings, whether they're just coming in through portals, or dimensionally speaking, or whether they are physically here. I always go back to the story. There's a lot of tunnels under Los Angeles. There's bad tunnels, which we've been reading about
Oh,
lately.
back in the 30s?
Oh, 30s, 50s, where there was a recent sighting. I've got a lot of the newspaper clippings from that. And um, essentially, a woman just walked into a room and saw a reptilian coming up through the floor out of one of her closets and kind of went, because they don't have basements in some areas of California, right? This thing just up it came. But this has been researched. They're definitely around. There's no doubt about it. Look into the ancient world. Look into, some of the ancient monuments and hieroglyphs, petroglyphs. It's just all there. Not being
Yeah.
hidden. And experiences, they're there.
Well, I was referring to when I said the 30s. I was referring to that famous newspaper article in the LA Times
Yeah,
at the time.
yeah.
We're going to look for the lizard people.
There was
There was a
actually
full
a guy.
expedition about it. Yeah.
It was, and they found incredible things, but there's just a whole lot more to all of it, and there are more places than you think. So,
Mm.
dragon connections, yeah. I've had dragon connections, like, I've always loved them, always felt like a kindred spirit to them, never understood why. It's like just a fancy, admiration of them. But dragons are keepers of knowledge, and they are very, very wise, and there's no doubt that they existed. I did a whole show just on dragons throughout different parts of the world, not just through symbolism, but through sightings and stories. And you just have them all over the world. They just look a little bit different in their appearance. So that came from somewhere,
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah,
right?
I agree. There has to be some connectivity
Mhm.
somewhere. If people all over the world had the exact same creature in their mythology,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, come on.
it's it's something, like dinosaurs. Just not another
Well, that
species.
that kind of leads us to, like you just mentioned, was dinosaurs. Is that a lot of people say that they never went truly extinct, and I don't
Mhm.
mean sharks and crocodiles either. I
Mhm.
mean like T-Rexes and stuff like that. There was a couple of different sightings in Florida. One was faked, I know that, but the
Mhm.
other one was a little suspicious,
Well,
where
some
they
people are
actually
catching them on
saw
their
a
CC.
T-Rex about the size of a dog.
That'd
Say
be
again?
that'd be crazy. But people catching them on their CCTV cameras, like,
Yeah,
their
exactly.
video
That's
cameras,
what I'm
kind of
talking
like.
about.
Yeah, it's kinda like, oh, those little freaking raptor things. I'm good. But you know what? I think remote viewers and people who can get into some very deep meditative states have seen dragons. They still see them.
That's
So,
intriguing.
obviously they're slipping in and out. I don't know that they're physically here per se, but they're definitely coming in and out because they've been seen flying over mountains. There's different reports of them. Back in medieval times, I mean, you had less people and there probably less air traffic for sure. So, probably safer to buzz around. But
Yeah, exactly.
y- there is a strong belief. Is it that so much, or is it just the want for them?
There could be something said for a tulpa, for the lack of a better term, a tulpa-like reaction. It's like you're
Hopefully,
gonna build it. So many people are focusing on
yeah,
it. You're gonna build one
like
and make it a
Santa,
reality.
Slender Man and
Say
Santa.
again?
Give that some thought.
Santa, right?
For Tulpa, not kidding. You know how many people believe in Santa? There have been sightings, off topic for a moment. There have been sightings literally of Santa, the man in the red suit, which that red suit didn't come into being, I think, until sometime between the 50s and 70s as a Coca-Cola thing. So where the hell did that come from? Don't tell me that's not Tulpa. So many
Oh
people
yeah,
believe
yeah,
in
yeah,
Santa
yeah. That
Claus.
that
There we
totally could
go.
be.
Yeah, sometimes he's very hostile and sometimes he's okay. So I don't know. Like, that's again a whole other show. This is an alien.
Yeah, that is a whole different show for sure.
Yeah.
Um, we have a few minutes. Let me tell you my story that kind of combines our main topic.
Okay.
It's a ghost of an alien, and it's a recurring loop thing that happens.
Right.
This was told to me by an SP. He used to work at Vandenberg Air Force Base, and he said, "Yeah, this guy told me this story. Hey, Heidi's here. How's it going, Heidi?
Mhm.
You're just in time for. That's okay. Just in time for story time. So, the this SB tells me this story. SB is a security patrol, just so you know.
Mhm.
And he says, "Yeah, I got told this. Now this is like second hand or third hand to me." And he says, "Yeah, these guys told me this weird story. And here's how it goes. We had at one time near one of the warehouses along the middle of the hey, Dolly's here, and yeah, and I'll put that up. near one of the warehouses, we had some stuff outside at one point, and a lot of these things have been just sitting there. I mean, some of it's piping that goes up and then goes back underground and that type of thing. But there's also crates that have been stacked there forever, big cargo containers, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And they have, and he says one of my friends was doing a patrol by there, normal everyday patrol. It's dusk, the sun is setting, and he said he ran into another group, two soldiers, and they were escorting a prisoner. And he found that weird because that area had not been used for any sort of prisoner transfers or anything like that for a very long time. And the uniforms he saw these guys in were older. It wasn't the digital camo. It was the older camo, like from the 70s. So, and between them's this little short guy, and he's being trucked around. He's trussed, he's got cuffs on his hands and feet, and he's being trucked along. And I think they have him in a jumper. And, sorry, not a sweater jumper, a jumpsuit. Right. I just realized my mistake there.
All right.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's
so Richard says this, and yeah. So they move along, and it says as they bring him around the corner of one of these cargo containers, he sees that their prisoner is a classic gray, and he's being shuffled along, and he's kind of down and stuff like that. And then they round another corner behind a set of cargo containers, and he goes running after him. It's like, whoa, where are you guys going? And they're not there all of a sudden. So he makes an unofficial report in his log. He says, he tells the CEO about it. The CEO says, keep it in writing. Don't report it, though. I don't want this going up anywhere. So a few nights go by, and a different group is patrolling that same area, same time of day, and they see these guys again. Around the corner, they march toward them. They're escorting this alien guy. They ran the corner again, disappear behind the cargo container. Same, almost the identical event. They go chasing these guys down, and suddenly they're not there. And so they make the report. They tell the CEO. The CEO says, "You're kidding me. No way. I want you and I want you, the other guy, the other team to get together, and I want you both to tell each other the story." So they do, unofficial right now. And they had the almost identical stories. The descriptions of certain things were like unmistakable. Uniforms, the type of cuffs that were being used, for crying out loud. It was amazing how similar these were. And to this day, they still get reports of this weird little prisoner escort. It's a tiny little path that's like as maybe 25 feet behind a cargo container, out from a cargo container into another one, or around the corner from another one. These guys still show up. So it's a loop. Something happened there that made that loop.
A replay that's crazy. You think about it, usually when you get loops and replays, it's like a substantial imprint of energy. So that's very fascinating as to what could have happened.
Yeah. Something surrounding that action.
Yeah. Yes.
That event was definitely traumatic to one degree or another.
Yeah. Wow. Little ghosty aliens. You don't often think to put them together. So,
Yeah, it was a bizarre thing. I mean, I never heard of an alien ghost before or an imprint like that before.
Yeah,
until I heard that story. It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
that's a different story.
I have to say, I've never heard of a spirit or ghosty alien. That's impressive. Makes you wonder too, though, with that, is it how much, because I say, like, a lot of the people that I've worked with, at least half of them came to be experiencers of some sort. I kind of wonder how much of that may have been,
Mm,
little ghostly apparitions of these little grays. I don't know.
could
But then
be.
again, you think about it, sometimes they look, I've had experiences where they look iridescent,
Mm,
translucent.
mhm.
So they look like maybe they could be fading. It's interesting though. It's hard to get a handle as to what you're looking at sometimes, because it's not something that's, well, natural in our minds, you know. So I don't know.
That's very
But
true.
yeah, hallucinations.
Well, two sets of soldiers having the
Yeah,
exact same experience, though. I
in the
mean,
hallucination. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I like it. That's new for me.
yeah,
I can't say that
that was
often.
a first one.
Yeah, for sure, for
But it
sure.
was strange. But Vandenberg has all kinds of weird stories like that.
Mm,
Nothing official, of course,
yeah,
but
of
um,
course, of course.
um,
But there's so
it's
much
just
out
an
there.
interesting
There really
statement.
is. Yeah, want to
Yeah.
get it for your audio listeners.
Oh,
I get it.
sure. I think we're all pulled together.
Yeah.
My I messed up. Let's try that again. I think we're all pulled to each other by our vibration. We're giving, and as you awaken, the more you can see and sense the vibration. That's Love Ten's interpretation of things. And
Hmm.
I can see some validation there. And Heidi says that is validation in her
In her
book
book.
of the whole alien ghost thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'll put that out
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And if we take a look at that,
Mm,
as because that's a rare story, as you agree,
it is.
that where we actually have, although it's a loop. You see, that's the thing that throws me. It's this weird. It's the I don't
It's a
know.
replay. It's like
It's
a
a
replay.
yeah. It's on a loop, and
Hmm.
I,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, could all four of these guys, these two teams of
Mhm.
SPs, be abductees? I mean, it's possible. They're in the military. They're on a relatively secret base.
If it's exact, though, if it's the exact same thing that's happening, and these people are outside of the box, so to speak, looking in, and the same thing is happening at the same time, that is a replay. My question is, you often get replay, like I say, something timestamps that energy wise, to create it to keep looping around. So I'd be real curious. I mean, them looking into it to see, did something ever happen along these lines in this space at any given time, um, to create this image. Sometimes though it could just be intense feelings as well. The projection of energy that just sort of gets caught there. Because let's face it, you can get really mad at somebody and have an argument with them in
Yeah.
one room. You can take off for a couple of hours, come back and wonder why you feel foul being in this space, because that energy, it projects outward and it just sits there. Hey, Steve, nocturnal. Um, yeah, it's nocturnal frequency radio. That's
Hey,
checking
how's
out.
it going?
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Um, So I think, when you factor that in as well, I mean, this is why you cleanse your spaces, to get rid of this energy that just sort of gets trapped in there, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
There's
I
many reasons
think
for it.
one of the things I had briefly on my team was hey man, one of the things I had briefly was a geologist on my team.
Mhm,
And one of the things I had to look for was all the quartz deposits in the area and where
mhm.
all these hauntings were happening, you
Yeah,
know. And it
yeah.
was an interesting overlay. It almost matched up exactly. There were some
Mhm.
stray spots here and there, but so I'm
Mm.
wondering if the geology has something to do because crystals can record a lot of stuff,
Mhm.
especially quartz.
Yeah,
So
oh, limestone,
limestone.
you know, there's
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 a lot of ferrous iron in the area
Mhm,
too.
mhm.
So
Running water. you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of underground stuff actually.
Up here in Canada, that's all water underneath. I'm surprised we're not hyped up more than we are. So, but no, for sure, for sure. Um, you're getting into when you start looking at vibration frequency, for instance. I always go back to Nikola Tesla when, and he was interesting in working with vibrations and frequency. And he really was,
Mhm.
technically speaking, the father of the first, telephone to the dead, as it got nicknamed, by, I think, by Edison as well. But there was a
Right.
lot of theories because I can tell you two stories on it. I mean, for him, he claims it wasn't so much about ghosts as it was about extraterrestrials. And he believed that he accidentally established some kind of a connection with ETs, and he started working on radio technology. And then said he could hear conversations happening. And even though it scared him, it was still pretty impressive, you know? Then Marconi, what a lot of people don't realize, Marconi had encountered similar experiences while experimented with his wireless telegraph. So, it's an
Oh,
interesting
I think I
phenomenon.
lost you.
Oh, I don't know. I'm here.
Some- Oh, there you go. I don't know. Internet
I
must have
don't
been
know. Yeah,
glitchy.
I just yada yada yada. But yeah, I was
Repeat.
saying,
Can you repeat Marconi for me?
yeah, Marconi, while experimenting with wireless technology, also had a similar experience as Tesla, with
Mm.
figuring he had contacted or came into contact with something. And then it brings me to Frank Sumption. Now, Frank Sumption he's deceased now, but he was a more current um, creator, I guess, of the ghost box, the spirit box. And
Oh.
I'm fortunate enough to have one of his originals that he had done,
Ooh.
courtesy of a friend of mine. Yes, and I was in contact with Frank for quite a few months before he passed away, and he said something very interesting because yes, Frank's box. Thank you. And he said something very interesting to me. He goes, "They all think that I built it to communicate with spirits." He goes, "I built it to communicate with aliens." And he had sent me some of his recordings. And, he got kind of badgered a little bit into building it. He was a shortwave radio operator, had some fun with that, and just kept being told to build this thing, and he did. And, it was just incredible
Wow.
designs. I mean, I've had two designed like after, Frank was designing his, which just were incredible. I was able to have the design improved on. But to have an original Frank's box, thanks to again a dear friend of mine who was his best friend, um, it's just a little piece of history to me above
Yeah.
all else because
It,
it was sort of the resurgence of all this. But just the fact that he said why he built it, I was kind of like, see, that makes sense to me because I have had
yeah.
encounters with different devices, very primitive devices, where they've come through. Hence clicking,
That's incredible.
clacking, all
That
kinds
really
of stuff.
is.
Very emotional, communications when they come through. It's very emotional when you're communicating with them.
That
Premonitions, they
really.
warn
Oh,
you about
okay.
things.
That surprises me a little bit.
No, very, 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 very interesting. One communication specifically was just like I was just in complete disbelief that it was happening, and it was pretty incredible. And they'll give you premonition stuff. Like I'll ask a question to say, "Don't do that at all." And one of them was specifically when this was going on. I said, "Oh, like I'm going to do this." Like I wanted to know I guess I wanted to know, were they aware of what was going on here and what
Mm.
were their thoughts about it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was just like, no. They said, no, don't. And in
Wow.
hindsight, and knowing some of the stuff that surfaced, I was sort of like, well, I really put a lot of merit into who I was speaking with, whoever it may
Mm.
be. It was good advice at the
Mm.
time, and healthy as a horse, and still healthy as a horse. And so I'm thinking, okay, couldn't have been all
Good.
bad.
Good.
But
Good.
Yeah. So it's just little things, but little things that were, I can see they're all different when they come through and communicate. I've had reptilians also come
Now,
through.
I would assume they're all telepathic to one degree or another.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
They're telepathic? Oh, yeah, they're telepathic.
Yeah, the various aliens you've experienced.
Oh, very much so. You don't
Yeah.
really need to communicate with the device. To me, I'm testing things. So it's interesting when things come through. I don't really like to use the apps per se because I feel that you're not getting real true stuff. I like, and I'll tell you why I like good old fashioned radio and connecting that through these devices. I have a device that I can actually connect anything to it, and it does crazy things, reverse speech, all kinds of things. Um, when I had a very dear friend in my life who passed away many years ago now, and we had this little agreement, and she goes, whichever one of us goes first is going to come back and leave a message for the other. And she goes, it'll be me because I'm older. And I was like, well, that has nothing to do with anything, but okay. Right. So she was like 30 years older than I was. So she passed. And
Okay.
2 weeks after she passed, I came in and had one of those, those old answering machines with the tape in it, and you can't fudge tape, right?
Yeah.
So it was one of those. So anyway, I
Yeah.
came home and my partner at the time looked at me and he went, just white as a sheet. I'm going, hey, and he just pointed to the answering machine. I was like, all right. So I played it and it was her voice. And at the end of her life, which was strange because I knew she had moved on, but I was almost like the extra validation maybe that her family needed because she had her sick voice.
Oh.
And all it said was she always used to call my cats fellas because they were twin white cats, pretty much. So she'd go, hello, fellas. But that was the message, hello, fellas. Here's where it's interesting to me because what I've learned doing research is that spirit they ride the energy waves, radio waves, whatever the case may be, which a lot of these ghost box type things are based on. But I could hear the channeling coming through in the first, because you get a beep, then it would go to
Oh.
the next message, beep, right?
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
went through about 5 of those before she left her message. But you could hear a bit of static and you could hear radio in the background very, very faintly. And then it became stronger. She left her message and it phased out the same way. I have it to this day.
Oh,
It was
interesting.
very interesting. So that was long
Very
before
interesting.
ghost boxes, or I wasn't involved in the paranormal at all
Yeah.
back then. That was way, way before, the paranormal days for me. And
Sure.
that's what I found interesting in the whole ghost box concept with an actual radio, though, right? So
Yeah.
it's a little bit
Yeah.
different, and I've had good success with it, but you have to be like anything else. You have to be realistic in what's coming through. You have to always be that, somewhat skeptical and be logical.
Hmm.
And, if you can get some kind of a crossover, as we say, something like if you can catch activity while you're doing it, I mean, we've had things like that, things coming through, and then all of a sudden, the lights will flicker, or you'll catch an orb for what
Yeah.
that's worth, but you'll catch, because I do believe in some spirit orbs. I just don't believe they're all that,
I
you know.
agree. I on my last show I just talked about that where I was not an
Oh,
orb person at all. I thought it was
oh,
dust or bugs or something.
pet
Then one
dander,
went through my
moisture.
body on playback.
I see. There you go. There you go. Yeah. I think it's just logic. Just be logical with what you're doing. The
Yeah.
journey, whether it's into aliens or whether it's into the paranormal, is just that. It's a journey of discovery and research. The fun to me for all of it is the journey to trying to figure it all out. You're never going to have all the definitive answers per se, at least not to a point where you can appease people. Some people,
Right.
you can have aliens standing right there smacking you upside the head, and you'd go, I don't believe it. you know,
That's not there.
right? Like they just don't. I mean, unless you're just sitting there standing, they go, here it is, that you just, it's
Right.
not a thing. So I don't know. It's the journey.
It is the journey. And we're going to take a quick break for some station identification. We will be back
Yeah.
in 15 seconds. This is the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 in the Gulf Coast. UPRN talkradio.com. Esoteric programming at its finest. And we're back.
Beauty. Nice and quick. There we go. Yeah. So,
Nice and quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, the journey. I mean, there is something to be said about that. When I got into this, it was all about trying to uncover the great mystery of the beyond, you know? It's like, what does happen to us after death? Are we just energy? Are we, is there a whole soul cycle, that whole heaven hell thing? I mean, it was really just brand new for me. Never mind, I came up Catholic. So I had a lot of answers, but some of that stuff didn't make sense. So I needed to answer those things for myself. And as you said, it has been a wonderful journey trying to re-explore all those aspects you're taught when you're young. And like, I don't know. And
I call that conditioning. Right.
Well, you can say that, and I think you're right to a degree. I mean, what is the purpose of religion? Wow, that's a different show altogether.
It is, but it's very pertinent because it gives. This is where a lot of people draw their strength from, because it's a constant in their lives. When I say conditioning, you grow up a certain way. From the time you're very little, we'll take Catholicism, for example. You're in a Catholic school, so it's all instilled into you, the belief system, the way of life, go to church on Sundays, this is blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on and on. So it's that mindset that sticks with people when they feel like they're frightened or they're under attack from something, whatever it may be. Right. But what's interesting to me is that it's so easy to believe in an ethereal being, a creator of sort. We know something's there. We know it. We don't need to be told. We know there's a creator.
Yeah.
Whatever name that creator goes by, whatever the case may be, we know he's there, but because it's an internal thing. We feel that. We don't need to be told that. But yet all of these other incredible things that may be going on around us, it's easy for us to say, yeah, whatever. We stand a better chance of seeing an alien than we probably do of seeing the creator. But it's interwoven within our fiber. So it's easy for us to say, yes, this is a thing. That, not so much. Well, all right. I mean, look at Jesus.
It's interesting. Go ahead.
No, I mean, look at Jesus Christ. I mean, is he not, in fact, a hybrid? If we want to be technical about it, you have the creator and you have a human woman.
Yeah. Well, you can look at it as the first documentation as a hybrid, as you just said. Yeah.
Well, Enoch would probably be your first. You
think Enoch was? Is that right? Did I not read that part?
Have you not read the book of Enoch?
I have not read the entire book, no.
You need to read the book of Enoch. Ezekiel's wheel. The Bible's littered with extraterrestrial experiences and contact and such.
I know he's literally taken up into the air and he can see the earth at one point.
Technically speaking, there's if you really get into it, you probably see that he may have been one of, I don't want to be crude, but the only way I can put it is he may have been one of the first hybrid donors, shall we say. So there's a lot to it.
Interesting.
Enoch is fascinating, but there's a reason it was left out among many. But look at Ezekiel's wheel. You can get into, Jesus himself spoke about different sort of experiences. Like there's so much in there that people don't take into account because it's like, well, it doesn't resonate because it's not in the New Testament. That's why I like the Old Testament. If I got to read one,
I guess I need to get cracking on my research.
Yeah. Genesis. Boy, there's so much stuff in Genesis that would leave you going, what the hell was I just reading?
Genesis is a weird one. Yeah.
It is great though. It's
It
just,
is. It's really impressive.
yeah,
Well, there's also a light speed calculation in Genesis.
I know.
A year
There is
says
stuff.
1,000 years says here.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. There's stuff in there, in these things. Like, I mean, and I don't look at it just because well, it's this book or this book. I read a lot of books. I've read a lot, and when I work with people, I have to at least educate myself somewhat on different belief systems so I have an idea on how to work with people. So when I meet a family, or I don't investigate so much anymore. I don't have time, but I sort of stepped aside from a lot of that. But I would look at, okay, what is your faith, your belief system, and I would try to educate myself on that as much as anything else about the family, what was happening to them. How do you work with somebody? I mean, I've had people say, no, there's no such thing as religion. It's all aliens. Well, that family may not believe it. So you may say, well, you can try to say, well, I'm not going to help you if you don't have this belief system. You can't force your belief system on somebody. They have to draw from within to help themselves. Once you have them in a good headspace, you may be able to suggest certain things.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my two
no,
cents
you're
worth.
absolutely correct. I mean, I've had the same experience. I've
Mhm.
walked into stuff I'm familiar with, being a Catholic. I know Christianity to a pretty well
Right.
as a
Right.
layman
Right. Yeah.
Christian, but it was when I walk into someone who practices Islam or
Yeah.
even Judaism, you're dealing with a whole different, even Judaism, which is strange because that's Old Testament strictly, but nonetheless, you're
Mhm.
dealing with a lot of different traditions, and traditionally, they would not recognize aliens, as you mentioned before. They
Mhm.
would not recognize even ghosts. It would be
It's a hard one.
they have hit a point where their religious beliefs do
Mhm.
not compensate for what
Mhm.
they're experiencing. And that's what they
Mhm.
bring me in. But still, I have to, you're absolutely correct. You need to know what you're stepping into before you walk through the front door.
I'll tell you
So,
something when it comes down to
yeah, I agree with that
mindset.
assessment.
I worked with a family. The husband was Muslim and the wife was Christian. And
Oh,
he took a step back and he said, okay, well, this is what we believe, but for you move forward in the direction that you want to, because he traveled a lot for work. So he says, you go, you have to handle this, you deal how you want to deal, which I thought was very good. But because of her Christian faith, it believed in certain things. They weren't a big believer in ghosts per se. It was Christian, so everything was a demon.
oh,
So
super orthodox or
no, just born again. I think it was
okay, gotcha.
that type of a faith. And so I had a friend who was a born again minister, um, down in North Carolina at the time, and they had people who traveled the world doing their version of exorcisms or deliverances. We waited a year for them to come in. And it was very new for me because the woman who came in said she started speaking in tongues. I had never heard this. I was kind of like, the heck are these
Oh,
shenanigans, right? I
right.
was not sure. I'll tell you something. I knew at that time that there were two houses that were experiencing the same thing from the same energy. And she came in within an hour and both places cleared. And that place did not have so much as an inkling of anything for 2 years after that, and then it amped up again,
Wow.
and I was able to go in at that point and clear it like that because she essentially did all the work. So something else just wandered in, but it shows you if the mindset is right and then the belief and the strength is right, it's amazing what happens.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we're dealing with energy and intention again,
Yes.
for the most part.
Yes. I agree with you. I agree with you. So there's a lot out there, but the constant crossover. I mean, if we want to get into even, do you want to talk about sleep paralysis a little bit
Yeah, let's touch on
on
that.
it? That's also a big one, sleep paralysis, because a lot of people in the paranormal will talk about sleep paralysis and having that that experience. It's only happened to me twice. And again, touched on this a bit last night. We had open mic, so we were all over the place. But at the time, I wasn't prepared to speak on it because I just had so many other things going on. But there's this feeling in sleep paralysis where you have a weight on your chest and something's pressing down on you, preventing you from sitting up or moving, and your body feels heavy and you've got pressure around you, and the feeling is strange. Like you feel like there's something around you. In the paranormal, we call that the old hag syndrome or the night hag, right? Which is a supernatural creature who's associated with sleep paralysis. And people who experience this have imagined sounds of humming. Note the sounds: humming, hissing, static, zapping, and buzzing and crackling. These are the same things reported, okay, during alleged demonic attacks. But here's what else it is. Okay, alien abductions share the same similarities where they're unable to move. Abductees claim unable to move, buzzing sounds, difficulty breathing, pressure to the chest, flashing lights, feeling of floating around the room, seeing figures in the room, which paranormal people have said, no, I get these smells, I can see shadows and lights. The same thing with abductees. So I did some research on it. And this is a part I'm just going to read off because it's the research part from a Canadian physicist named John Christophe Terrellon. So he was doing research in Japan, and this is what he reported. Now, he's a scientist. He doesn't believe that evil spirits are there, and he didn't believe in all that. However, in experimenting once a week, he sensed a threatening presence, something very evil beside his bed while in a paralyzed state. And his ears rang, the weight pressed down on his chest, and he struggled to breathe. See, the ears ringing, where you feel that pressure building up in your head?
Sure.
And he said that he felt an intense pressure in his head as if it was going to explode. Sometimes he found himself being transported upward and looking down at his body. And he even felt like he was being hurled through a long tunnel. So when you think about that, even people experience things like this when they see crafts, the intense ray of light, cracking sounds, followed by this paralysis. But some people even take it a step further with levitation, both paranormally speaking. People have felt themselves coming up off of a bed as much as contactees or abductees have claimed to do. So there, here's as a scientist who doesn't believe in any of it. So there are logical reasons for it, but I just find it very interesting that you have that crossover happening again.
Yeah, that's intriguing. That's very intriguing. There's when you were speaking about that, I was reminded of astral projection as well. And how that actually occurs to, for lack of a better term, inexperienced folks who have that ability. They'll at night, especially, just start rocketing off to different places.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've known people who have done it. I believe that when we sleep, we travel.
That makes sense.
The example I use is, we are energy. If you can have an out-of-body experience, if you can have astral projection experience, you can leave the body. So the example I give is when you park the car in the garage at night, you sleep in it. Of course you don't. Most people don't sleep in their damn car. So you go to bed at night, you just sit there all night. Your spirit, your essence does not need to rest. There's a strong belief that it's the body, the physical, that needs to rest, that it's not so much your energy. Right? Your energy speaks for itself. Energy.
Right.
So, you go rocketing off somewhere, and, sometimes you come back and you have, all these incredible stories in your head, and you think, oh, maybe it's a dream. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't a dream. I've had dreams where, I know I'm on the red planet. Well, there's nobody over there. But it's fully on. I'm fully aware of what's happening. So are we time slipping? Are we moving around? we have that capability as energy to just go back and forth, and I don't doubt that now because things like that happen now to living people where they're bopping about and just time shifting away. I know of at least two people who I know, right, have as kids run around the house a couple times, being chased by your friends, and all of a sudden you're like, he could hear his family. This one case specifically, he could hear his family. They're looking for him. So what did he do? He went the other way counterclockwise, and then he walked into the house, and his family said, "We've been looking for you for 2 hours." Meanwhile, the kid's like, "I just came around, just finished running, and I could hear everybody." But he went into the house and he couldn't see them. He couldn't. He could just hear them. So can you imagine what we could do if we're
Oh,
not bound by the physical?
yeah.
I don't know.
That's
It's
incredible. That's incredible. That reminds me of a really sad story where somewhere Midwest America, there's this farmer, I think, in a cornfield, and he had just mowed down the last of his stalks for the season,
mm,
and he never came home. So his family goes out there, and they find his tractor there running still on fumes, and so it's sputtering and stuff like that.
mm,
And they call out for him, and he keeps saying, I'm here," but they could never physically find him.
mm,
And they keep going at the police come out. I don't know if the feds ever got involved, probably not.
mm.
But there's a search party, and people can hear him in the area by the tractor. I'm here,
That's crazy.
and they couldn't find it, and it got weaker. The voice, it was heartbreaking because it kept getting weaker and weaker. And it's, "Well, I'm here, just I'm here. Please help me."
Oh my
And
God. That is
after
nuts.
like 3 or 4 days, they heard nothing anymore. They didn't hear
So
anything else.
he just
So
disappeared.
he slipped into this odd alternate dimension, apparently.
It reminds
But
me of a story of a woman who woke up one day and she was wearing different clothes. She was in her building, but it wasn't her building. She went to work, which looked different than where she had been. All of a sudden, the man she'd been engaged to for 7 years didn't exist. I believe I have it written down someplace, but I believe she had a reward out for anybody who could help her get back to her own time. She knew she time slipped.
wow. I mean,
It's
that's an alternate reality jump. I
that's a
mean,
big jump. That's a big jump.
damn,
Yeah, I know, right? It's out there. Things are happening.
it happens. Well,
It
there's that really famous story about the guy who flew to Japan, who was from a country near Spain that doesn't exist.
I know.
Remember
See?
that one?
You know
Yeah.
what? It proves, though, that in this reality of ours, that we don't know everything, and to think that we have all the answers, or to naysay things that are going on, I think is unrealistic. Maybe we're labeling it
Yeah.
wrong. Maybe we're seeing things wrong. Maybe it's pareidolia in some cases. Maybe there's reasons for everything. For me, to deny extraterrestrial existence is my personal thought, because it's easy for me. I'm an experiencer, but I think it's silly on our part. I think that they were here before us, and that there are many that are traversing back and forth. All you just look at the ancient world of stargates and portals
Oh,
and power
sure.
spots, and it doesn't go away. You
Yeah.
get places like, the church. We're just going to build right on top of this sucker because it's amazing. Vatican being one. We're going to open up these portals. That's good news. Right inside the Vatican.
Well, yeah, it's also an interesting. I think it's less of a cover, more of like a power grab, personally.
Well, it's smart. It's smart.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, you don't get them all. You might get the big ones, but you don't get them all. There's some all over the place. People open up
Yeah.
portals all the time. Sometimes they're in the mountains, sometimes
Yeah.
they're under the water, sometimes they're literally all over the place. This planet shifts and does incredible things. It's a living thing. It creates all kinds of things. It's got ley lines. It's got natural vortexes. It's got it's happening all the time. And I think that's why sometimes people just walk in and slip into something. And there are techniques which allow you to do it. Hence the kids who run around the house, come back. I've heard 2 accounts of that, both of people I know. So I don't know. There's something to
Well,
it.
that's for the kids who ran around the table. I mean, that's complete kid logic too. Oh, I'll just do it in reverse. And
I know.
Well, I think we're also talking about his intention and his energy, and his focus. Okay, so I run around in reverse. It'll come out. I'll pop back into reality.
Well, you know what? I mean, yeah, he's this young kid. Wasn't a little guy by any means.
I mean, that's perfect kid logic, and it
10,
worked.
Yeah. And it did. Yeah, I'm going to go back the other way and see. But this is 2 different occasions, and I'm thinking, what caused it? What caused that frequency change? Was it the speed? Was it the mindset at the time? Like, he didn't plan on running around. He's being chased by another kid.
Yeah.
And he just went, and the kid comes around, and the kid's gone. So he's running around the house. One kid just goes, the other kid's like, goes in the house. They start looking for this
kid. I guess it's either geological or geographical. Like, this thing's moving. That's my guess.
Yes, but it's fascinating nonetheless, isn't it?
It really is a fascinating thing, and I think that's what happened to the farmer guy too. I think he ran because he's coming off mowing corn. He wasn't focused on anything, you know. He just got off his tractor and fell into a completely different universe,
So
or one next door to us.
It kind of brings
anyway.
you back to like crop circles and stuff.
It kind of does.
Does it change things? Does it change the dynamics? Was there something overhead that changed the dynamics? I don't know.
Could be. That could very well be.
Yeah. I'd say do it and come back and report. Mish, come back and report your findings. You're on a mission now.
Yeah, do it.
I know. So, but I mean, I think it happens. I know with the crossover, everything is connected. Cryptozoology is connected to the paranormal, ufology. You mentioned Expedition Bigfoot, plug again.
Free plug.
There have been times, orbs have been seen, around these beings. There's a strong belief with the whole quantum thing, with all of that. Everything is connected. They've seen shadow people. So what are we really looking at? Is there like some sort of a dimensional cross as well as some of this stuff is happening? Some researchers believe that many of these cryptids come in through portals. Others, hence the primatologist, no, it's just another species. So when you're looking, are we misidentifying, or, we have so much space on this planet, right? Deep cavern systems, tunnels.
Right.
It's easy for them to hide, but we never find evidence of them. Are they just slipping in and out? You see
that kind of lends. Sorry, say that again.
No, I mean, people have said, they've seen dragons flying around.
Oh, yeah.
And they're gone. You can't miss them. They're bigger than a Bigfoot.
That jumps into the Bigfoot phenomenon too. I mean, Ron was on the show. Thank you for putting him in contact with me.
He's wonderful, isn't he? Yeah, he's great.
Was fantastic. So we had Ron. I just blanked on his last name.
Yeah.
I just blanked on his last name.
I know.
Ron
Moorhead.
Bigfoot guy. Anyway.
Ron Moorhead. Yeah.
Moorhead, thank you. Oh my goodness.
He's wonderful.
He's fantastic.
But it makes sense.
But he speaks exactly what you're talking about, that they move through he says they move through the trees. They use their network to get around. Kind of like they did in Star Trek Discovery when they created the fungus network. Which I found kind of silly, but that's me. I mean, they got it from somewhere, but I think he really kind of connected to that entire thing where these trees are actual passages to a different dimension, different an alternate reality, or whatever, however it is you want to look at it.
Trees have a complete communication system. They're living beings. They have an energy, so that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they talk with their teeth. I'm kidding. According to the
Maybe.
primatologist on
Maybe.
Expedition Bigfoot,
Don't rule it
maybe.
out. Yeah.
But I mean, no, I wouldn't. I mean, you've heard Ron sounds? Those are freaking incredible.
The Sierra sounds, yeah, they're
Yeah,
crazy.
absolutely. The
They're
Sierra
crazy.
sounds are incredible, and if you
And
listen carefully, you'll actually hear bits of human language in there from three different tribes that I
mhm,
was aware of.
mhm,
Miwok, I'm blanking on the first one, and
mhm.
was it Navajo? I could be
That
wrong about
wouldn't
that. It
surprise
was
me, but
Miwok, Navajo, and Algonquin.
mm. Well, there's a lot of theories that go around that, like for the Iroquois, for example, who also have great
Yeah,
stories
yeah.
of different, ethereal beings, were said to be descendants of Atlanteans. Imagine the stuff they
Oh,
know.
really?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
You can find it. It's crazy. It
Iroquois,
is.
great.
It's crazy.
What part of the country are Iroquois again?
Oh, they're everywhere. I mean, Canada, United States, right?
Yeah.
So they're just like
I'm
Mohawk.
trying to
Uh,
think because I don't think we have Iroquois in California
No, 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 they're down that far.
per
Northern
se.
US for sure. Different
Okay.
parts of Canada. So that's yeah.
So Central North America, basically.
Well, I don't even know
Basically.
if how far down they go. But I mean, technically speaking, I mean, even the Aztecs made their way up to, well, I say made their way up to North America. It's believed that they came from North America and made their way down initially. And then when the
Oh,
conquistadors
they
came in,
crossed the Bering
they
Bridge,
came back
yeah,
up.
and then they came
Yeah.
back up. Well, there was didn't they just recently discover either an Aztec or Mayan pyramid in Alaska
Oh, heck
very
yeah.
recently?
My Mayans, they were north before they were south. They went south. The conquistadors came in, the Spanish, they went back north,
That makes sense.
right into Utah. There's stuff everywhere that
Yeah,
show that they've been there, all the way north. There's so much
very cool.
pre-Columbian history that people just have no idea about. Seriously, there's a lot out there, and it just goes to show you, that when you start researching all of these connections, when you go down into South America, I always say the ancient people had a very strong understanding of extraterrestrials, and you see it everywhere, and they had very strong connections with reptilians. Very strong connections. So you can go back
Oh,
in, you
Quetzalcoatl.
know
Yeah, I mean, come on.
well all of it. I mean, they had, like, the different, serpent, they had the like, this even in China had the serpent goddess, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
so the dragon emperors, out in Japan,
Mhm.
and then you're getting into the Hindu mythology of the Nagas and the snake people. The Hopi spoke about the different ones, the Aztecs. Come on, let me just go all over Mesoamerica. Jeepers, feathered serpents, and just like
Yeah.
they had in China, feathered serpents. What is it with the reptilians? These are not just stories,
Yeah.
there's a
Something
lot of
happened.
lore. You have to
Yeah.
look at it all, right? The
Yeah.
Hopi, the Ant people, these are oral traditions. I say when you want to look at something, not just, from crypto, side of things, but just look at this sort of thing, ETs. Just look at some of the ancient structures. They've got grays, they've got reptilians, they've got insectoids. Look at the oral history. I know it's an oxymoron. Look at the oral history, but it's out there. Right? I realized it when I was saying it, but you have to immerse yourself in that because it was all there first before us. And it's all the
Yeah.
same all over the world. It's all the same. You know, I know in
Yeah.
Peru there was a story of I believe it was the god Morob was sort of like an iguana type being, but he was said
Oh.
to be really, really powerful, and he was a mediator between the worlds of the living and the dead. But Peru is so immersed in it. I think there was one where um a cataclysm came to the area, and it was a reptilian who took the people down, which is where they all were. And they
Oh.
took care of them. They educated them. They fed them. Meanwhile, everybody's like, oh no, you're probably just eating them. No, no. won't say for sure it never happened, but no, because
You're
they do.
taking me off. Your lunch tonight.
I know that's kind of nuts, right? But I mean, if you're getting into going back like thousands, well, 5,000 plus years ago, it's believed that our cosmic memory was erased by reptilian species because it's believed in there. Again, we're talking about frequencies and energies that keep reemerging. But this is why it's so important to have a knowledge about the frequencies. But there's a strong belief that they were here first and that they had the right to rule over us. And it's believed that some of these lines are part of the elite world today who still think that they have that right.
Yeah. Screw them.
So I know it can go in a lot of different directions, Tim. Just
It
believe
really
me.
can. It really can.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I don't think, I think when people are having paranormal experiences, they need to look into, do some digging. A lot of researchers now, I think, anyway, I mean, I know, there's many who do anyway, but you almost have to look at the parallels. You have to look at both sides of the coin because, I've worked with people and I'm like, why is this happening? Why is there a sense of this? And I'll just throw it out there. I was working with one woman and I'm just like, this keeps happening. This doesn't make sense to me. Do you have any military connections? Oh yeah, I have an uncle who worked at Area 51. Okay. And you just didn't think this was important enough to say anything. And she goes, oh, no, I guess not. I'm just like that emoji with the big blinking eyes. It's like, what? I know. So that was interesting. It's not that she had anything to do with Area 51, but it sure explains, because a lot of people end up with their family members, end up with heightened paranormal activity and maybe contactee activity, and they're just not aware. My lab, there's a lot of different things behind that. That was a shocker to me. But what it did is it took my research in a bit of a different direction, which enabled me to help her in a different way.
Oh, that's good.
So, well,
It's always nice when you can help people. I love that part of the business.
Yeah, it is. It's not for everyone. Some people do a lot better just going to public places to investigate. If you're looking for just that research, not everybody wants the responsibility. I've had so many researchers throughout the years just say, here, this is for you, because I don't mind putting the time in. And in some cases it does. It could take months to reframe, to do it right anyway, to reframe what goes on up here. I used to have like a 1.5 year waiting list at one time. And I would work with people just online or through the phone, just trying to educate them because I couldn't be there in person for a while. And by the time I was done working with them and I had availability available, they're like, we're actually okay. I've had so many people stay in touch with me for years and years saying, we just want you to know we're still okay. And thank you for giving us a gist of how this all works, because now we have an understanding of how to take care of ourselves. And I tell that people, it's easy for people to call me, this is amped up, but this is going on. I'm like, I will be dead one day. I don't want to do this in my afterlife. So it's like, you need to get a handle on it.
Terrible.
I know, but it's true, right? I think it's important. We as researchers, a lot of researchers will take risks depending on what they're dealing with. All you have is just a really aggravated human spirit too, and follows you home and starts creating all kinds of havoc. And, some people take risks. And I think it's important that if you start with educating the people you're helping, then after a while they can help themselves. And it's good for them to help themselves. They have to.
Absolutely. Ouch. Absolutely. And my psychic on my team, JJ, she has this, she's a light worker by practice. And, excuse me, she always gives them little pieces of advice, like stick a little salt under your bed where your head
Yeah.
is, uh,
Yes.
yeah, little things, and, small little simple poultices. I mean, when we come back from an investigation, I do olive oil and salt scrub on
Yes.
myself. And
Yes, that's
yeah, it's the
exactly
simple
right.
little things that work, but you give that to your clients as well, and that helps them maintain a clearer field and doesn't attract, they're not
You have
attracting so much
to.
negativity.
You have to give
You
them
have to.
something to do with respects to, so they're taking care of themselves. It's very
Yeah.
difficult for where I've had a lot of struggles is when a husband comes to me and says, "I need help," because, you know, women are from Mars, or men are from Mars, women are from Venus. That whole thing does apply because the male is the hunter gatherer, right? I take care of the family. I like that. That's how the wiring is, and on an average, I won't say like in this day and age, we have a lot of women who are the same, and vice versa, and in every aspect, I think it's evened itself out quite a bit. Whereas when you think with the right side of your brain, it's just more that nurturing, aspect, and that being the case, I've had dads come up to me and say, like, I don't know, like I can fix anything, I can do anything, but I don't understand this, or I can't because I can't see it, or it's been very difficult for them to take a step back and say, like, this is not natural. A lot of times they don't even believe it. And you got the wife and kids going, holy crap, this stuff going down. And so it takes a lot for them, for him to come in with, logically speaking, going, I just can't get my head around it. So a lot of times, I'm trying to rework that. So it's important to say, okay, well, try this or try this, or, you be the one to keep everything structurally, you know, positive in this space, take charge of it, and it's
Yeah.
important. People need to know that they're in control, and they don't all understand what's going on. Sometimes you move into a house, something goes on. Sometimes you have somebody who comes into your home who's brought something with them. Sometimes you've wandered into wrong
Dude.
space, wrong time, wrong, so this is something out of the norm. So it's
Yes.
you have to educate and give them something to do to put them back in control.
And not just put them in control, but give them. Well, actually, it is control. Never mind. I was going to say put them on the center line again, but you said exactly that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm funny like that. No, but it is important. I mean, I grew up in a home loaded with activity, and I only teach what I taught myself as to how to
Gotcha.
be in control of my space. Sometimes you have these really gifted kids, and they're like little firecrackers, and just all the stuff is attracted to them. So then you have to try to work with on that level, on a child's level, because they're bringing things in, and then they end up in really
Right.
bad situations because they're very easily manipulated. And ironically enough, even those who are having experiences with ET beings, even kids, a lot of times kids are really relaxed with it. Other times, not so much. I've seen
Yeah.
people. I had somebody in my own space who basically said, when I think he was like 18 at the time, so not a kid per se, and he was like,
Yeah.
I was being pulled out a window while it was closed, like just
Okay.
like through this energy, and he had a fear of aliens like his entire life. I'm going, that's crazy,
Wow.
and this happened. So I'm like, why am I only hearing about this now? You're freaking 18. Uh, because I don't think they were always aware of what was happening.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, that is a strange one, though. Hey, I mean,
Mhm.
an 18-year-old doesn't realize he's
Well,
been.
no,
Now,
because
was he an abductee or?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. That
I
makes
think
sense.
I think he just happened to wake up while it was happening
Wow.
and
He was
caught
being
it at
phased
that point.
through
He
a
dropped like
wall.
a sack
That's
right on the floor, like,
crazy.
boom, after that, yeah, because he just held on and went like, "No
Wow.
freaking way," and then he just dropped. He's got that levitation thing again. And it goes to show you, like how do you manipulate the physical like that? I just think it'd been
Hmm.
something was obviously up because of this intense fear. Even as a child, you would just
Yeah.
see one. It's just like, that uncomfortable feeling, not really knowing why, right? But then
Right.
again, you have paranormal
Yeah.
activity that surrounds. It's all merged together. So, there's a lot of crossover, as you say, but it's a matter of where does it start? I've worked a really aggressive case one time, only to find out that one of the sightings that they had on the house, on the property, which essentially was seeing something almost cryptid like initially, but then found out through research that there were UFO sightings within that small town in the same time period that this went on. And it went on for about 4 days, and
Hmm.
people calling into the police. And a neighboring farm was having work done in one of their barns, only to find out like that the workers took off because there were grays spotted in the barn. So you see now,
Wow. Oh,
right? So you have this big mix of stuff going on within
yeah.
probably a 7-mile radius. So don't tell
Well,
me
that's
things aren't
usually the
connected.
case too. I mean, yeah, 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 yeah. That's usually the case too. There's this circle of weird or high strangers,
Yes.
however you want to look at it, that's
Yes.
happening in a given area,
Yes.
and it's
That's
usually
exactly
spread
it.
out like over 7, 10 miles. Yeah.
Mhm. And different people experiencing it.
So
And
maybe that should. Yeah.
but we have a cryptid sort of thing there, and we have historical stuff, but
Yeah.
we have a cryptid thing. We've got paranormal activity like amped to the nines. We have sightings that went over for about 4 days with um, enough people calling in to the police department, and then we have a full, gray sighting on a neighboring property.
Wow.
So
It's
that's a whole mix.
interesting to. Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
interesting to speculate on what they're looking for or doing or what their mission is, because I
Yeah.
can never really lock down the mission. I mean, there's biological research. I could see that being the case. But I
Mhm,
mean, why are you
mhm.
getting soil samples from a barn? Do you really care?
Well, maybe not. Who knows why maybe they were curious, and
Yeah.
these people come wandering in the next morning. It's like they all look at each other. It's like, all right, we're gone. I don't know. I don't. It's very difficult. There's a lot of people that believe that ET is here. They're aggressive. They're just doing experiments. I think the humans, our side, tends to do more of that in a way, but I won't say it doesn't happen. I
Yeah.
think our reaction probably sets them off a little bit more than might make our experiences a little bit worse. I can only speak for
Hmm.
myself. I mean, I can't sit there and look at someone who says I've been abducted, had a horrific experience, and I don't want to undermine that, and I don't want to say no, it didn't. I don't want to say yes, it did. That's every experience is different for every person who has experienced it. I can tell you
Hmm.
for myself that I have found when I have said no, because I could feel when they would come in, I would say, "No, I am just no, 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 hell no," and I've learned to be more gentle about it, and I'm just like, "No, I really don't want to go, not tonight. I'm tired, whatever." And I find that all of a sudden it's completely gone. The energy just disappears. I've had times where I've said, just let me fall asleep first, and I don't care. I just need to think I'm having a good night's sleep." I know, and it's like, "Okay." And all of a sudden it dissipates, and then I wake up in the morning, like, I know I've worked my butt off somewhere because I'm exhausted, but I'll just
Mm.
say, "Okay, I'm willing to go to work, just need to" whatever it is that you do, because there's so many theories. Some people say no, you go on craft and you help other, experiencers, or you may be going someplace to help, in different areas, or keeping people calm, whatever the case may be. It's just like, if I think I'm having a good time, I'll let it be. But whatever the case may be, I can only speak for myself. I have learned to become very relaxed with it because I have set boundaries that have been abided by, to the best of my knowledge. And I'm not uptight about it. And I like to think my spidey sense would act up if there was something that was not at hand. I don't believe they're it's like good people, bad people. It's the same idea. I believe
Yeah.
that there are many here doing really great things and trying to wake us up. And then you're going to have those who probably here already that, are may not be as kind. Just don't assume that they're all unkind. So
Yeah.
follow your
I guess you have to play it by ear, don't you? You have to make that assessment in the
trust in
at the
you. Trust
say
in
again.
you.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Trust in you. We are all designed with these instincts, it's all part of our fiber. Some people remember how to use it, some people don't, so but you
That's
have
true.
to trust in you as to how it makes you feel and go from there.
Well, let's briefly touch on something that quasi relates to this.
Mhm.
The 2020 program, if you're aware of it. Do you
The
know what I'm talking
2020
about?
program.
Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Say
Nah,
again.
refresh my memory. Maybe I'm just seeing it, hearing it in a different way.
Well, I might have this wrong. I might have this wrong because I'm only half aware of it.
Okay.
That there's a it's almost along the lines of the secret space program, almost.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
apparently, there's a program where you have 20 years, you serve out among the stars, and
Right.
then 20 years
Yeah.
you come back.
Yes. Yes. I've heard that one. Yes. That there's a lot of people on the fence with that.
Yeah,
You'll have some people say absolutely no, not at all. I have a friend who claims to be, a super soldier. There's something going on with him because he's very, very emotional. He's really had it rough. So I tend to believe that there's definitely something happening with him without a doubt, because people do not expose themselves to potential ridicule. Most people come through this with a good heart, understanding that they want to share it to help other people, often with risks to themselves. We are in an age, hi Janie, we are in an
Jenny.
age of whistleblowers at the moment, and a lot of people are starting to come forward. And I think now there's a new guy at the helm in the US who's open to that as well. But as you know, I have heard and read about, people going in 20 years that they're coming back. And Dr. Michael Salas talks about that with his contact. He's got contacts authors who've come on and spoke exactly about that. But
Mm.
again, there's people who are like, no, absolutely not. There's no space program. And there's other people going, oh yeah, this is freaking space program. Uh, so I don't know. I don't know enough about it, and I've not interviewed anybody who's been in this program, but I have interviewed people who um, serve as sort of serve in it, but just not so much for the 20-year thing.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
There was a book like came out in the 70s or 80s. This is during the huge kind of the UFO blow up, at least here in America,
Right.
um, where everything was about UFOs. Like there was a UFO magazine. I read that
Yeah.
religiously, and
Yeah.
there was all kinds of stuff about it.
Yeah.
And there was also books that came out, and among one of those books, there was this great story that
Yeah.
meshes with the 20 and 20 program.
Mhm.
And this guy tells a story. He's having trouble sleeping, and he
Mm.
hears about this doctor who can help him out, and that's who wrote the book. I mean, he changed the names, but he told the stories.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this was a regression hypnotist who he went to. So this guy goes there and he says,
Mhm.
"Yeah, I'm having a real hard time sleeping. I'm having weird dreams sometimes. I don't know. I want to be able to sleep a full night. I got work to do. I'm getting
Right.
older. Yada yada yada."
Yeah.
And so he says, "Okay, let's see what we can find out." Puts him under, and he used to tell me about your childhood. Oh, this, that, the other thing. Pretty happy childhood. Nothing really to complain about. Teenage years, nothing really to complain about. Okay. Let's go back to your childhood one more time. Okay.
Right.
Tell me about your first memory. And this is where it gets weird. He says, well, gosh, I'm looking at myself. What do you mean? Well, I'm looking at myself as a little boy, about 2 or 3, and but I'm outside myself. Okay, how did you get there? The hypnotist is just going for it, right?
Yeah.
And well, it was part of my retirement. Keep going back.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So he goes, he goes back further, and he tells the story about how he was a soldier on a ship and he served with not only other humans but multiple alien species. It's so Star Trek, and it's kind of cool. But he was a part of an assault force. They were in a war of some sort, and he says he went on multiple missions, and he was basically, he had this thing, kind of like a pole. He mounted almost like a minigun. Have you ever seen anyone carry a minigun? It's like that, but it just fired a beam. He called it a force beam. And he says, and we just took anything out that was in front of us, and then once our mission was completed, we get back in and we leave.
Yeah.
Get back. We have a shuttle of some sort, and they dock with a mothership. And there was a command structure, military command structure involved in all this. And when it came time for him to retire, he had a few options. And he chose the option of living a new life, as they called it. Well, okay, where do you want to go? What kind of life do you want to live? You can be over here.
Yeah.
No, war is never cool, absolutely. But you can live over here on this planet and be this type of person, or, he was giving them options on species. Now, he was human, so he said, I'll be a human again, why not?
Yeah.
So he's taken to this planet, very nice blue planet, lots of water, land masses, sounds kind of familiar. And when he's essentially teleported down,
right,
and he has a brief opportunity to find someone, and he finds himself, or what he thinks of as himself. A little boy, 3 years old, looks up at him, and then suddenly the perspective switches. He is seeing things through this little boy's eyes, and his life goes on from there.
Oh, it sounds a lot like, I'll tell you something,
Sure.
Wayne, like Wayne, my Wayne who lives here. When he was 4 years old, he was, they were having his birthday party. He was just 4 years old. All of a sudden, he sat there, he got really sick to his stomach, threw up everywhere, and he looked at his hands, and goes, oh my God, I'm a child. Yeah, right? And he has these weird dreams he tells me about, like these experiences when he travels. And a lot of it is like he goes, honest to God, like he tells you about some of the things that he does, and I'm going, I says, I think you were just like a step-in or something. Like, I think like you just got thrown in here and that was it. So if that's the case, you got this little dude who's just kind of like, I'll hold on for you for 4 years and that's it. Well, who knows? Maybe he was the same idea. Because as you say it, I'm like, it sounds a lot like this situation.
Yeah.
But then you wouldn't remember necessarily your super soldier days. Or does he?
Yeah. Well, as he further regressed, he comes to the point where it's a little more modern times, and he cannot possible parallel lives, Richard, absolutely. But he says, as I got older, others would show up at my house, and he lives out in the boonies, and he get visits, as it turns out, from his old crewmates. Weird looking aliens of all different types, and his captain even visited him him one time. His
That's
old
crazy.
captain. Yeah, that
That's
was insane. So
so
that was probably my
they've
favorite
come
story.
back in different lives as well? Or are
No,
they
they
they're still
were still in their alien
there?
existence,
Oh,
and
crazy.
they just
Yeah.
visit him once in a while.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's so
It's like,
cool, though.
how you doing? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a crazy one.
So you're 2020, do your time, and, yeah, that's kinda cool. I dig that. That's cool. That's very interesting. I love that story.
Yeah,
I
it's an
love hearing
intriguing
things like that.
process.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
that's a crazy story. Oh my
Mhm.
God, I'm a child. I'm still stuck on that one.
I know. He's still stuck on it. He just shakes his head. He goes, "I would never have come back here willingly. I got duped and thrown in." I was like, "Oh, boy."
Crazy.
I know. I know, but who
Uh,
knows? Like, we don't have an understanding of how everything works, but it is fascinating.
it
All these
really is.
journeys,
Yeah,
lots of
man.
journeys going on out there. So, but yeah. So,
Good.
yeah.
We are 5 minutes out. I don't know if you want to cut it early or we can go to 2 if you want.
Oh, yeah, that
So,
doesn't make a difference. You've got me for 2 full hours, so you whatever you want to do. So,
let me get things at least ready on my end.
mm,
Any final thoughts that we would like to share with our audience regarding all this fun stuff?
there are things out there that are far beyond our understanding, and having an open mind to it, as opposed to being closed off to it, will allow us all to have more answers, because the answers are there, sometimes hidden in plain sight. Look at this, look for synchronicities. I don't believe in coincidences at all, but I do believe in synchronicities, and I do believe it's a universal language as well. Once you start to recognize them, you'll see them all the time, whether it's numbers, whether, like, I've had experiences where I've seen a name on the side. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. When my mother was passing away, I had to drive 4 or 5 hours to see her, and on the side of a transport truck was my maiden name, which is not common, and there it was, spelt properly right
Mm,
there, and I was just like, "Okay, synchronicities." So
mm.
just look things up. Everything has a message. Sometimes it comes in the form of a song, sometimes a street sign, sometimes it's just a business sign. Think about what's going on in your life at the moment when you keep seeing things or you keep hearing certain things. That is that is an amazing way to start your journey of exploration. Don't turn it away. Just explore it.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice, especially if you want to be a paranormal investigator. Uh,
Especially. Yeah.
you need to be way open to all kinds of different explanations for the various things you investigate. So,
Research, research, research,
yes, yes,
cross-reference,
yes,
research, cross-reference
absolutely.
again. That's the best
Richard
way.
makes an interesting statement that synchronicity means you are in a flow state.
You are 100%. 100%.
Absolutely.
So, my words of
With
advice.
that, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to wrap it up. We'll close things out.
Yes.
Michelle, thank you so much for being on the show with me,
Pleasure, as
with
always.
us.
Lots of fun.
Ladies and
All
gentlemen,
right.
my name is. Oh, fantastic. It's so great having you on. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tim Sudano. This is Paranormal Insight. Until next week. If you have a paranormal experience that you would like to discuss on the show, please email us at paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com. That's paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com.